Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Now, tonight I'm going to talk about Jessie Pinkman. Now, why did I choose him? First of all, he was the first character that I didn't like him. And so I'm going to start from the least liked to the most liked. Or I could change my mind. It doesn't matter. He's been in my brain for this series for a couple of days now, so I'm going to do Jessie Pinkman first. Now, we first meet Jessie Pinkman within the first episode of the series. We see him dealing meth, and he's basically a junkie. He sells meth to fund his habit. Now, he was a former student of Walter White, and he dropped out of high school, and their lives intersect when Walter White decides to sell meth. However, he wants to make meth. Well, at first these guys don't mix very well because, Jessie is the complete opposite of Walter White. Jesse's younger, he's in his mid to early 20s. He whines a lot, complains a lot, which is one of the many reasons why I didn't like him in the first place. I thought this guy is just one of the worst complaining snivel bitches that I've ever seen in a television series. Oh my god. An annoying asshole. So they decide to pair up, and at first Walter White says, hey, you never really concentrated in my class, in which, they had this bitter argument back and forth about how to make the most effective meth. Because believe it or not, at this point, Walter White's, totally committed. The only bad part is he's never sold it before. He never sold it before in his life. And he's now deciding to manufacture it. Well, he looks at Jessie's product and he realizes that he could make this meth a lot stronger, a lot purer, and give it a better taste by using a certain chemical called methylamine. Now, Jessie, being the argumentative little bint that he is, decides, oh no, I don't want to do it. But Walter proves him wrong. And so, through fits and spurts and through a bunch of accidents and just a bunch of shitty situations, they end up forming this partnership. And Jessie ends up trusting Walter because he realizes he's right. He needs a guy that is a certified chemist to help make his product. But it becomes Walter White's product too. And here's how Walter White ties into this thing about how he became a good chemist, because I'll do him in a later episode. Because I just have to. So, Walter White is a chemistry teacher, of course, but he's not like most chemistry teachers. He just didn't get a chemistry degree and just start teaching. No. He was a former chemist who, after selling his share of a company that he was supposed to form with two friends, decides to become a school teacher and teach high schoolers about chemistry. And so he knows his shit. He is good. He knows all these chemicals. He knows how they form and how they react. And methylamine is a key component of this meth that can make it pure, stronger, and taste better, like I said before. So Jessie, we figure a lot about Jessie within these first couple of seasons, in that he's this annoying character, but he loves children. That's probably the only saving grace he has, is he loves children. He has a weakness for children. And to me, that was by far his best trait. However, he tends to get used and abused and taken advantage of the most out of anybody in the series. I mean, this guy, he is used by all of these people just to get back at Walter White. And you see that in the whole entire series, he is not in charge of anything at all. Up until, or at the beginning of the series he was, but that was only for like a couple of episodes. But once he partnered with Walter White, it was just straight downhill for him, because he couldn't do anything by himself. He always needed somebody to help him. So that, to me, made him the weakest character. What also made him the weakest character was the fact that he was a junkie. And when you see most junkies in either movies or television series, they're usually very weak characters who are motivated by their habit They do everything for their habit. And that is why Jessie was selling meth. So that way he could have enough money to purchase more meth to smoke. And this is one of the many problems he has in the series, is that everything he does is just to score more drugs to smoke, or to do basically more, to score more meth, because he's a meth addict. He even infiltrates a rehab clinic so he could sell the clients meth, because they're former drug addicts, or many of them are trying to quit. So this is what kind of a brazen character he is. And another trait that he has is that he tends to have a very quick trigger temper. Out of most of the characters, he goes off the rails so many damn times. And he's the most crazy character you could have, that even though he loses temper, you know he's a chicken shit. I mean, Jessie is not a very strong character, in my opinion. He never was. And he does have a motivation in the series, and it was to buy back his childhood home, because he did take care of his grandmother for a while. That was also another weakness of his. Well, not really weakness, but that was a soft spot for him, was his grandmother. He used to take care of his grandmother. And once he got that, though, he just ended up partying all the time. And he dissipated as a character. I mean, there were several times where he got literally beat the shit out of, because he did so many stupid things, and he was just a crazy character. So he is also, in my opinion, the character who ends up with the worst fate out of any character in the series, because he ends up having to make meth, and he has to copy and duplicate Walter White's formula to the T, because Walter White, he's been hiding, and so since Jesse's his partner, he now has to impress these guys, because there is a point at the end of the show where he's making meth for this conglomerate, this German conglomerate, and they like that particular brand of meth. This is how far this whole drug thing went in the series. Even a major conglomerate was purchasing and supplying them methamphetamine. Well, yeah, sorry, this video is kind of late, but bear with me. Anyway, this conglomerate was buying meth, and then they were, exchanging or giving them methamphetamine and all this sorts of crap. And that right there was another big plot point. How far this drug thing went in the series was that it went from one guy making it to all of these different drug lords, to then this major conglomerate where all these companies were centered in many different countries. And this was a global thing for them. And Jessie was a whole part of it. We also see that Jessie had several girlfriends throughout the series that perished under very tragic fates. One died of a drug overdose, and the other got shot. I mean, he was able to get a few girlfriends, and he was able to get some companionship besides Walter White, which really wasn't much of a companion to begin with. But all of those companions he had were shot, they were killed. Unfortunately, because of the life that he led. He was a drug dealer and worked for a drug lord, basically. And so that is a major part of his character. And to me, his dark side was his junkie, was him being a junkie. Because if he hadn't, he might have gotten control of his life. I mean, you gotta realize that we don't see how bright of a person that Jessie could have been in the show. I mean, yeah, he did take care of his grandmother. He could have been like a nurse, maybe. I don't know. But we don't really see any glimmer of hope for him in the series, because he started as a junkie and drug dealer, and he pretty much ended up partnering with all of these people who took advantage of him and used him like a cheap suit, basically. And it was really terrible, but like I said, he was probably the most tragic character out of all of the characters in the show because he was almost a pitiful character. He could have, with all the resources he had, he could have just not went with Walter. In fact, at one point he wasn't with Walter White, but unfortunately they were tied together because of their particular brand of drug, and so that was it. But for me, though, Jessie Pinkman, he remains for me a very weak character, and his whole his dark side part was, like I said before, his junkie, his drug addiction was his dark side because everything he did was to feed that addiction. He was even willing to manipulate people just to feed that addiction too. I mean, like I said, he infiltrated a rehab center so that way he could sell them drugs because these people were still in the middle of their drug addiction throes. So that's it. I mean, I was never really impressed by him, but he is part of the show, and he is part of that whole character, list in the show, or that cast of characters. Sorry, this is getting unblowy. The whole cast of characters in the show who were around Walter White that most people ignore. I mean, that's how it goes. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry about tonight. I have kind of a stuffy nose and kind of a stuffed head, kind of a bit of a head, kind of cold there. I don't know. It's really weird, but thank you for watching. Enjoy, subscribe, like, bye. And remember, nobody does it better.